Hi, everybody. So, a friend of mine asked me to do a discussion on grief, and there's probably a reason why I haven't done this yet because it is so big. It's so just such a huge topic, and trying to figure out like what to say about it. My goodness. So, let's first start with what grief is. Grief can be you can have grief over the loss of many different things. It can be a family member, a friend, a pet. It can be a job, loss of a job. It can be loss of a relationship. It can also be loss of physical or mental health that we're grieving over. And in this grief is experienced differently for everybody. So your experience of grief and my experience of grief are totally different. And that's okay. It's okay. We can all experience grief in different ways. And knowing how we experience grief is very vital for how we deal with it when it's an extreme grief inducing situation. So, when we have a loss that's extremely close to us, how do we deal with that? Well, we deal with it often in the ways that we've dealt with other losses. So, if you have had losses in your life and suddenly you're T-boned with a gigantic loss in your life, like use those skills that you learned. Another issue with loss, with grief, is that it depends on your your experience of the process of the loss. Did you see it coming? Was the person or pet old and you knew something was coming? Or was it a sudden out of the blue, like, oh my gosh, this person's no longer here and we had no idea this was happening? All of those things contribute to our experience of grief. And in my own experience personally, I would say that the sudden loss of someone is more difficult to go through than if you see it coming. But there are other factors in that too. So grief is such a huge topic. So let's try and talk about how to deal with grieving. Now, what's healthy when we deal with grieving? Well, it depends on you because your healthy dealing with grief might not be my healthy dealing with grief. For some people, it's important to be around others, to talk, to be able to share and and and, ex- uh, and voice their feelings of loss. Now, for me, that's not true. When I'm around other people, I tend to be the one helping other people. So I'm not dealing with my own stuff. For me, it's the healthiest for me to go in to myself and just be alone and work through it mentally. But again, it depends on the individual. So when you are experiencing grief, you're not going to be yourself. That's okay. You are going to be experiencing physical symptoms of grief. It can feel like you're having a heart attack. It can also feel like you never want to live again. I remember when my mom passed away, feeling like I'm never going to laugh again. I'm never going to feel that happiness again. And it was probably a couple weeks afterwards that I laughed and I noticed I feel that on the inside. Like I feel happiness again. So it takes a couple weeks to start to come around to that. And it can take even longer for you, depending on how you grieve. And let's talk about time. Now, there's this Facebook meme that I see on Facebook all the time. There is no time limit of grieving. Okay, yes, I totally agree with that. You know, my mom passed away in 2011, and I still have moments where I get really sad. Now, they're fewer and far between as they were in 2011, but that's normal to still have moments of, oh, crap, that person isn't here with me anymore. That sucks. But I am going to ask you to put a time limit on it. Give yourself set time periods. And I know I have psychologists and mental health professionals yelling at me, no, that's wrong. Here's what I do. I allow my time to grieve. I schedule it if I need to. I set up an assigned time to grieve. And that's what we do with funerals. This is your assigned time to grieve. Now, does that mean after the person is buried, cremated, whatever, that we stop grieving? No, it does not. We still live in that grieving process. But we should not be living in that grieving process forever. Okay, so here's where the time limit comes in. I allow myself a specific amount of time. Okay, I'm feeling really sad, and I can't always schedule it. Normally, it's it just hits you in between the eyes sometimes, where you're like, oh, I was about to go and have a good day with my friends, but oh, I'm about to lose my mind and start bawling. So well, I need to take a break and do that. So I will give myself, okay, Mandy, you're feeling really crappy. You're feeling really sad. So here's what you do. You give yourself 15 minutes to feel that. Go into that feeling. Experience it fully. Let loose with the tears. Let loose if you need to scream into a pillow, people, because we don't want the cops coming. Okay? If you need to scream into a pillow, scream into a pillow. Do it. Do whatever it means to you to express that grief, to get it out. And then you can even set a timer, 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, you get up out of that grief and you go do something. Do something that's reflective of living to you. Do something of self-care. You do something that makes you happy, that helps you to reconnect with life here. Because the grieving is about the loss of life, the life that's no longer here for you. That was a B. But when we're talking about grieving, that we focus on that life not here. We have to reground ourselves into the life that's here. We have to find happiness again. We have to seek out life and find joy again. And we can do that if we try. So you have to separate yourself out and say, okay, this is my time. I'm going to grieve. It's okay. And then move on and focus on, I'm going to go and I'm going to live my life. I'm going to get out in that sunshine. I'm going to go walk on a hiking trail. I'm going to be out in nature, seeing that everything is still alive and growing and changing. I'm going to go pet a puppy. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to go have a good day. So that's what I do to deal with grief. And I think it's important for you to do the same. Now, if you are experiencing extreme grief to the point where you don't want to get out of bed after a week or two, where you can't function, where you don't want to be here anymore, that's when you need to contact a mental health professional and start working through this. Sometimes we need guidance on how to deal with loss. Lord knows we've never been taught that, right? So that's not a class in high school, not an elective. No. So it's not there for us. So we have to learn how to deal with it on our own. And if we can't, we need help. And it's okay to need help. Okay? And the last thing I want you to to be left with, this last idea, I want you to think about, what would this individual want for me in my life? Would they want me to hole up in my bedroom with the lights off and just sleep all day? No. No, nobody wants that for you. So we can go and live our lives in memory of that individual. This individual doesn't get to experience this life anymore, but we do. And we can go and experience it for them. And being in contact with them, like that's another, I'm adding one more thing to my list here, sorry. We also have the opportunity, I talk to my mom all the time. I saw her in my dreams last night. You know, I'm connected with her still, because I fully believe that the love that we have, nothing can take that away. So I talk to her. Sometimes I'll write letters to her, and sometimes I'll just be like, "Hey, Mom, I know that was you. Thanks." And we can stay connected in that way. In my experience with the afterlife, death doesn't cut these ties. It just changes them. It changes the relationship that we have with the individual. We no longer have a physical presence with us. But I believe that we have a spiritual presence with us. And that individual is still around. And we can still talk to them. We can still say hi. We can still update them on our lives like we would, like, "Hey, I've been up to this." Yeah, you can do that. You can talk to them. And I believe fully that they hear us, and that they can even, if necessary, respond and step in and send a sign. They can send a message. So look for those, because I believe they're still around us. So that's what I want you to do. If you are grieving, take the time to grieve, but limit the time. I want you to focus on getting back out into life as you feel comfortable doing it, okay? Don't push yourself too hard, but sometimes you got to push yourself. If you are struggling, talk to a mental health professional, because if you're still feeling just as bad weeks and months later as you did the day you learned that this person passed, then you've got to address that. You've got to get some help. And talk to them. Talk to the people that you've lost. Let them know that you miss them and you love them. Update them on your life. Let them know how it's going. And live and experience life in honor of them. So I hope this is helpful for you. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. You guys be blessed, and I hope and pray that your pain and loss subsides and that you can see the beauty in life again soon.